Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Scruffy-Looking Nerders podcast. I'm your host, Tyler, bringing you all things nerd and geek-related. And on this episode, I'm going to be talking about some gaming news, some upcoming Star Wars news, and some Dungeons & Dragons stuff. So, here we go. Now, I wanted to start this episode with this information, but I don't want it to feel like I'm trying to be a downer or anything. But I can't not talk about this. On Monday, the world lost a true legendary superhero. Stan Lee passed at the age of 95. You know, I understand, he had faults as a man, but everyone does. I would like to feel like he's made up for those faults throughout the years and trying to right wrongs that he's done for the most part. But like I said, we're all human. No one's perfect. When I first heard this news of Stan Lee passing away, I was pretty devastated, and that's putting it mildly. I was at work, and I actually had to take my break earlier than normal just so I could regain my composure. And I'm not typically one to be sad or upset about celebrity passings. Like David Bowie, Alan Rickman, Gene Wilder, like all these people who were super influential, growing up. It wasn't as impactful as this was because Stan Lee was so fully ingrained throughout my life, in childhood from reading comics and watching the cartoons on Fox, to my teenage years when I first saw the, Spider-Man movie in theaters and, the X-Men movies in theaters, and then and through adulthood, whenever I saw Iron Man in theaters 10 years ago, it's insane. And so, like all of these characters and himself as a person, like who he was and how he was just always positive, and he was always he never really looked in things in a negative way. And he was so intertwined into pop culture that you can see his influence across many different forms of mediums, comics, movies. I would argue even say music. There's nerdcore rap out there, like MC Chris and Adam Warrock. There's like all these mediums out there that he has influenced. And, like I said, I grew up reading Marvel Comics, Spider-Man, X-Men, Fantastic Four, especially Iron Man, watching the cartoons when I was younger. And now that I have a son, watching, all these cartoons and stuff with him, watching these movies with him, experiencing this, watching him read comics that I read when I was a kid, and for these characters to be so timeless, they've definitely shaped who I have become. And being able to see faults and the realness to his characters really made me feel like I could accomplish things that I never thought I could before. He will truly be missed, but I feel like his legend will live on forever. And I know that's totally cliche, but it's true. I feel like they will go on forever. And on his Twitter account yesterday, a video was posted of how he perceived his fans, and I'm going to play the audio for that now.
We got, again, the fans love your sense of humor, and it's...
Well, it's an equal love fest, because I love my fans. I cannot tell you how much I love my fans. They, sometimes at night, I'm sitting here, and I'm thinking, what's it all about, And then I get a letter from a fan, or I read something, or I see something, or I remember something, and I realize it's so lucky to have fans who really care about you. And that's the reason I care so much about the fans, because they make me feel so great. And there's something, if you think about it, that is wonderful about somebody caring about you as I care about them, whom you've never met, who may live in another part of the world, but they care, and you have something in common, and occasionally you contact each other. And this business of fans, I think, is terrific. And I love them all.
Excelsior, Stan. Rest in power. So, moving on to video game news. So, for the first time in over 20 years, Sony and the PlayStation will not be at E3 in 2019. Game Informer reported that instead, Sony insists that they will be, quote, exploring new and familiar ways to engage our community in 2019, end quote. Sony was then asked if they would be having an off-site event similar to how EA and Xbox have been handling E3 in the past couple of years. Sony's response was that they will not be doing any press events near or around E3. IGN posted an article of 3 theories as to why Sony is skipping E3. These were essentially, at least 2 of them were what my mindset was when I first heard that Sony was skipping out on E3. But basically, number one, E3 is a dying event because it's true. And Sony isn't the first company to skip the expo. EA, Activision Blizzard, several more rarely show up anymore. And couple this with the fact that booth space price has been spiking as years go by, more and more companies will skip out, and until they can bring that price down and make it viable for companies to want to be at E3 rather than just doing their own event, they're going to keep losing people. The other 2 theories were that Sony's big hitter titles for the PlayStation 4 aren't showcase ready, or Sony is just going to wait for the PlayStation 5 to make their comeback to E3, which, honestly, that makes the most sense to me. And that's what my first thought process was, is they just want to wait to make this huge comeback for the PlayStation 5, so they have something to announce, because it's already been rumored that the PlayStation 5 is in development. So, but do you know who will be at E3 this next year? Microsoft. According to reports, they will be preparing to launch a discless version of the Xbox One console, which may arrive as early as spring 2019. While that is before E3, which takes place in June, it will give them a chance to promote any Xbox One S revisions, as well as the discless Xbox One and their next-gen console, which we all know they've already said they're working on. So I definitely look forward to E3. I feel like Microsoft is really starting to close that gap in this current console war. They're definitely making much better judgments than what they did initially at the beginning of this console's tenure. In other gaming news, certain Telltale games have been removed from Steam as the company is essentially going through bankruptcy. Now, in regards to the games that are being removed from Steam, only certain titles so far, such as The Walking Dead, Back to the Future, and Tales of Monkey Island, have been removed, while other titles, such as Batman, Guardians of the Galaxy, Tales from the Borderlands, and Game of Thrones, are still available for purchase. As I said, as of now, which it may change. So essentially, they're just trying to sell off these IPs to other companies so they can pay off their debts before they close out, so that way they can make sure that they don't end up owing a lot of money to people. On Twitter yesterday, answering an upset fan who demanded a refund for the game Lawbreakers, Cliff Blazinski explained that he didn't take a salary for himself for the last 2 years that his company was running, despite paying all of his employees their own salary and benefits. He added that this reaction from players, that was, quote, another reason he never wanted to be making another video game. On Twitter, Joshua Heights says, at the real Cliffy B, at Lawbreakers, you all won't refund players who stuck with you all and spent money for you all to keep up the content. Cliff, I looked up to you during the Gears of War days and sad to see you where you are at. Wish you'd come back. Now all that money is wasted. He spelled wasted wrong, by the way. He added an I, so it was like someone's waste. I don't know. Anyway, so Cliffy B responded with, I paid my employees their 401ks and their health care, even months after the studio folded, so they could care for their families. I didn't take a salary for myself for 2 years. I get you're sad, but God, this kind of shit is another reason I am never making another game. So, can I just get, like, a round of applause for Cliffy B? Just... That right there is what you need to do when you own a game studio. When you know you're folding, you take the hit yourself. You take care of your employees. That's what you do. And several other figures in the game industry voiced their support for Cliffy B in this most recent online discussion. The director of God of War, Cory Barlog, was among them, saying that he, quote, did right by his people, and his actions should be held up as a standard for how we should all aspire to treat those we create with, end quote. Exactly. Telltale Games is how you don't do it. What Cliffy B did with his studio, that's how you do it. That's how you take care of the people who make you your money. And whenever your project doesn't pan out, you don't make them take the brunt of it. Like, they were just there to help support you through your vision, through your project to get it going. They're not the ones who need to be taking the brunt of that. And I commend Cliffy B. I can't commend him enough. Like, that's fantastic. That's awesome that what he did. And I really hope that becomes the standard for the game industry, for the movie industry, for television, like all across all creative industries. I hope that is what becomes the standard, because that's how you take care of people. So, GameStop's Black Friday deals have been released in a preview flyer, and some of the deals include a PS4 Slim Spider-Man bundle for $199, which is similar to the Target one, which is a doorbuster at Target, but I think this one with GameStop, there'll probably be more in demand, or more in stock, I should say. So you'll probably get a better chance at getting that at GameStop. They'll have an Xbox One S 1TB Minecraft Creators Bundle for $199. You'll be able to get DualShock 4 controllers. They'll be on sale for $38.99 each. New games are discounted up to $40. And GameStop has a special deal on toys, drinkware, statues, board games, and apparel, where you can take 30% off as many items that you can fit inside of a GameStop bag. So they give you a GameStop bag, and whatever you want to fit in there, you put it in there, and you get 30% off all the items in the bag, which that's super cool. And lastly, in video game news, nominees for the Game Awards for 2018 have been announced across 30 categories. Marvel Spider-Man, God of War, and Red Dead Redemption 2 are all up for Game of the Year, along with being nominated for tons of other categories, including Best Narrative, Best Game Direction, and Best Action Adventure Game. God of War and Red Dead Redemption 2 are tied for the most nominations for 2018. Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Monster Hunter World, and the indie game Celeste are also nominated for Game of the Year. I'm not going to go through all the different categories and list all the games on the podcast, but I will post the list on Facebook, so keep an eye out for that. And moving on to movies/TV news. So Disney finally announced the name of their new streaming service, and it will be called Disney Plus. And that's cool. But something more important, I just decided to do a list of every upcoming Star Wars movie or show that's been announced. Star Wars Episode 9, which is coming out in December of 2019. There's the Clone Wars show that's being revived, which my son and I are super stoked for. We both love that show. There's going to be a series, another live-action series based off Cason Andor from Rogue One. Obviously, it's going to take place before Rogue One, but